Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Elyse Hosts Live. Oh, wow. We have been tremendously blessed this month with it being March 2021, even in spite of the pandemic, because you all have tuned in. You shared candid feedback, and we've had phenomenal women during this Women's History Month that have been showcased, highlighted, and they've been able to share their story, their journey. And it could not have been a more precedented time such as this. So, this is our final week for the month of March. We're super excited and we're absolutely blessed to have one of our pillars in the community who has worked seamlessly behind the scenes, none other than Tiffany Livingston Hardy. So, as we get ready to start tonight, we want you all to sit back, enjoy. Please share this with your friends, like it, provide us feedback. And if you have an idea or suggestion, feel free to let us know. We do have some up and coming sponsors that will aid in terms of the broadcast of our show. We're super excited about that. Next month, we're focusing on National Minority Health Month. And so part of that is bred out of our guest tonight. Without any further delay, we'd love to take our time and allow our guest to go ahead and introduce herself. Tiffany, come on, tell us who you are, a little bit about you.
Hi, Elise. Well, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here. So I'm actually from Tennessee. I grew up in Johnson City, Tennessee. I've been in Cincinnati, the Cincinnati area for about 20 years. And so happy to join you tonight.
Very good, very good. So, being from Tennessee, matriculating to Cincinnati, you have an amazing journey that you've taken. You have some stellar contributions to our city. And I'd love, as we get into our conversation, to talk about those things so that our viewers can hear who you are. They understand the history that you've made in this city alone. I know that you're one that typically you're okay behind the scenes, but again, this platform gives individuals who are making profound impact to our city and beyond to come forward and share their story. So, if you will, I'd love for you, Tiffany. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about, maybe where your education start was here, a little bit about who you are, and then from a professional stance, the journey that you have begun and that you've taken right here in Cincinnati.
Yes, so education was very important in my family. Like I mentioned, I grew up in Tennessee, and my dad and my mom, education was really big for our family. So I actually started out school in South Carolina, and I matriculated to University of Cincinnati, and I graduated with my undergrad degree here in Cincinnati. So I'm a Bearcat, so go Bearcats. So after an undergrad, it was a great experience. I was an older student, and I was a working student, and I lived off campus, and it was just a great environment. I was in the McMicken Arts College of Arts and Sciences, and it was just a really great opportunity. I ended up actually studying in business and African American studies, and graduated with honors. And actually, in 2020, 2000, class of 2000, I was actually the commencement speaker. So I gave the commencement address in front of about 20,000 people, and so it was a real honor to do that. And actually, that was a comeback from a setback. The year before, I didn't have enough credits to graduate, and when I went to the graduation to see my friends graduate, I said, "Oh man, I'd love to be on stage. I'd love to be part of SGA. I'd love to be on stage." And so I worked really hard. I was on the dean's list, and a professor at that time, Dr. Collins, she nominated me to be commencement speaker. And so it was a real honor and privilege. And from there, I got my master's degree at UC, and I served on the Cincinnati Board of Health. I was the youngest member and then chair of the Cincinnati Board of Health for the Cincinnati Health Department. And I was about 20, 21, 22 when that happened.
Wow, that is amazing. So my test in life, it started out early with kids. Like when something astounding happened, I always get these chill bumps, and I just got chill bumps, Tiffany, over what you said. You said that your setback was a setup. That the fact that you didn't have enough credits in one instance, you had an aspiration to go after something, and you became the speaker in front of thousands of individuals in an environment, something that you aspired to do, you didn't let it affect you in a negative fashion. So, having heard that, because there's a couple of things I want to pull out, how did you assimilate and what was that whole stick to itiveness? Like, what was going through your mind in terms of what made you say, hey, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to fast forward and come out on top?
Yeah, I had really great professors. I had really great, family support. And I really used that time sitting in the bleachers, watching all my friends graduate. I really used that as kind of the energy and excitement to push me forward. And actually, for the next year and a half, I actually made Dean's List. I graduated with honors. So it was a tough time, like seeing all my friends and going to the graduation parties, but knowing that I wasn't there, but it was like God put a seed in my heart. And so the class of 2000, that was the first graduating class of the 21st century. And so it was just a extreme honor. And I remember the day that I went to interview for that position. And I had a mentor at UC. Her name was Linda Bates Parker. God bless her, God rest her soul. But she always said, better your best. And she always told us about like whatever you go into, you make sure that you research, you make sure that you're ready for that interview just in case. And so that weekend before meeting with the dean and the provost, I wrote an impromptu speech. And when they said, "Well, hey, what would be your topic?" And I said, "Well, funny you should ask. Here's my speech." So it was like the preparation really helped propel me forward. So yeah. And so my
Absolutely.
so and my family was very like nervous for me because it was like, how are you going to speak in front of 20,000 people? But it was really awesome. It was awesome to see my mom and my dad and my family like up in the stands, and it was just a great experience.
I love it. I mean, you even mentioned that through all of that, you were one of the youngest ones. We have young viewers, we have senior, mature viewers. You were in your 20s when you had your board experience here in Cincinnati. Tell us about that. What did it do for you? How did you come about the value behind having board experience?
It was really exciting. It was really an opportunity to see politics at work and really having eye for the community. At that point in time, environmental justice was a big issue. And one of the biggest things going on in Cincinnati was they wanted to place a new landfill in the Winton
Mm-hmm.
Hills area. And so, growing up in Tennessee and growing up in the city, I just recognized that Winton Hills, that Winton Terrace, Winton Place area had already been bombarded by so many businesses and chemical companies and plants, and there was another landfill already there. So the board took a strict position that we didn't want to add to the burden and the health, negative health effects that the community was kind of dealing with, and working with the health commissioner at that time, Dr. Malcolm Adcock. We were able to not allow that newly developed building down there on SD to be developed.
Wow. So, lots going on in the area. So, for those that, if they ever do aspire and want to know, it was a tremendous value and asset for you having had that board experience. So, you were young, you're on the board, career wise, you're entering into your roles. Talk to us about some of the roles that you served right here in Cincinnati.
Yeah, and I think, always having great mentors, and being a mentor, but also being mentored by others. So when I
Mm,
actually first came out of college, I worked for the American Heart Association. And so I was responsible for like a four-state territory. That was my first job. And I was responsible for Ohio, Cincinnati, West Virginia, and Dayton, Ohio, and Lexington, Kentucky. And so I had to travel a lot, and I was starting a family at that time, and so I really was doing well with the National Heart Association, but I felt like I
Mhm.
really wanted to. I had a son, so I got married and had a son, and my son was 15 months old at the time, going through like natural separation anxiety, and so I decided to kind of plant my feet here locally. And my husband told me about a job at the City of Cincinnati, and I applied, and I started out with the Department of Public Services, and I was assistant to the director then, and then I went on to work in the city manager's office, worked in Mayor Mallory's tenure with City Manager Dahoney. And after spending about 9 years in the city manager's office, I actually started with the Cincinnati Police Department. And so did community engagement and communications, and really helped to promote the positive police community relations. And so a lot of things that you saw, the Running Man Challenge and working with Chief Blackwell. I then worked with Chief Isaac, and so just as and actually when I think back about it, I was the highest ranking civilian officer there in the department, and so yeah, it was really an incredible opportunity to extend the reach of the police department in the community. This was a time where a lot of the riots were happening, a lot of the police community confrontations were going on, and so it was a great opportunity to get out and do some outreach, really reach out to the young people in the community, and really the hard to reach. Like a lot of the programming that we started was a week of service for new police officers. So we did homeless outreach, and they cooked for the homeless, and they played hopscotch and jumped rope with the kids and played basketball. So it was a real opportunity to extend the police department into the community. And so now I have the pleasure of working with the Greater Cincinnati Waterworks. And so taking a different approach to community engagement and outreach, and really helping people to see the value of water. I think sometimes people don't understand that water is essential and water is life. And so I have the great fortune to work with our executive director, Kathy Bailey, on extending our communications and community outreach efforts for the water utility here in Cincinnati.
Tiffany, you are amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you heard just like I heard, just the value of individuals that are working behind the scenes, specifically with Tiffany, her role with the police department, those efforts reaching our community, the students, those that are impacted by critical decisions while being a minority and female. And then to fast forward today, her role, which it's always been my honor to get to know Tiffany and I. We met through church, serving, volunteering in ministry, and we just never know who's around us. And Tiffany, I remember you helped the church at that time get a national day through the city. So not only have you been doing things career wise, serving on boards, volunteering in the church, but you also help the church get recognition through the relationship with the city because of your role, just continual contributions that are impeccable and are historical. One of the things, the desires that I have is through this platform is to capture these moments because those that have been featured here already are doing things that have never been done in the city before, so that we do have a frame of reference that we can go back to and say, aha, that's that individual, there's that moment, and
Mhm.
share the narrative, which oftentimes may not engage and embrace everyone who's making that impact. So thank you, thank you. Let's talk about Tiffany as a wife, as a mom. We know that oftentimes, and I've shared this on the show before, that as a woman, we get up, we bring home the bacon, we fry it in the pan. We're significant to someone else who may rely on us. And you've experienced some tremendous things, which I think would be beneficial for our audience to share.
Mhm.
Talk to us a little bit about that leading into your passion and what you're doing with grief.
Yeah, so I was like I mentioned, I was married in 2002. Then we had our son. We were, getting our son situated in kindergarten, and we found out that my husband had stage 5 end stage renal failure, and so at
Mhm.
that point, he was quickly, put on dialysis. And, we know so many people in the African American community that deal with heart disease or kidney failure because of like diabetes and things like that. And so, he fought a great effort with that, like a long battle with that. And unfortunately, after a long time, he ended up having heart surgery. And unfortunately, he didn't bounce back from the heart surgery. And so when our son was 15 and a half, the hardest thing I ever had to do was to tell my son that his
Mm.
father was not going to make it. And so,
Mm.
we had been since he had been in kindergarten, we had been in so many hospitals and so many situations like that. And so my son really thought like, oh, this is another time that dad's in the hospital, or this is just another procedure. And I don't know, my spirit was just telling me that just something didn't feel right. Something felt different. And so it was the spirit and women's intuition and a mother's intuition. And I told my son, I was like, I really think you need to be mindful. I think you really need to be present. And so, teenagers now, they're all on their phones and things. But he really listened, and he spent a lot of time with his dad the next couple of days. And then unfortunately, he ended up having to be put on a respirator, and we had to make the hard decision. But through that, my son, he's worked hard. He's a senior this year at LaSalle, and
Yay!
yay! And I do know that his dad is watching down, over
Yes.
us. And when you think of grief, but you don't think of chronic grief. And I didn't understand what chronic grief was until I attended a grief workshop. But 6 months after my husband passed away, the week after the funeral, my dad had a stroke, and he never fully recovered from the stroke. And then 9 months later, my dad passed away. And
Mm-hmm.
during that time, my son's godparents, like when you sign up to be a godparent, you really don't understand the magnitude of it. Like, we sign up for the birthdays, we sign up for the baptisms, we sign up for the graduation parties, but you never really think that you're going to have to step into your godchild's life in that
Mm.
capacity. And
Mm-hmm.
so after his dad passed away, his godparents, James and Karen Lowry, stepped up and were great godparents. My parents stepped up. And then, like I mentioned, my dad got sick, and then his godfather got sick. And so 6 months later, his godfather was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And so the day that his godfather was put on a ventilator, my dad was put on a ventilator. So
Mm.
as a wife, I just basically buried my husband, and now my son's godfather, and now my own father. And so the grief was a hard process, but I'm thankful to God. I'm thankful to my family, to my friends, to my village that really helped us to get through it. And
As you
Stephen,
said, that one of our viewers, Nicole, knows extremely well about grief. She says, "But God," I wanted to share
but
that
God,
comment. You're
yeah,
exactly right. And keep going. I'm sorry. You were
yeah,
saying.
yeah, but it was God, and it was a hard lesson to learn, trusting, that our steps were still ordered, and trying to help my son get through it as a young man, as a newly found single mom, trying to raise,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
a young Black man here, in the United States. And so, grief was, it was tough. It was tough for us. And then you throw in the mix of the pandemic, last
Mm.
year, and the mental health, and you know, um, with that. But I feel very fortunate to have, friends and sisters and my family. My family's really close. I have two brothers. They think they're older than me, but because they're 6 feet plus, and I'm in the 5'5" club. So they think I'm the younger one. But we are a very tight knit family, and I thank God for that, because a lot of times when you have grief, it really tears families apart. And so I'm thankful that our family like bonded together. And
Yes.
my dad has left a legacy. My husband has left a legacy, and my son's godfather, who is my cousin through marriage, but my cousin nonetheless. And we know that they're all watching over us, and they're going to be so
Yes.
proud when James walks across that stage and graduates. And the legacy of education, like my husband Rick, God rest his soul, when Vice President Harris graduated. So my husband graduated from Howard, and I started thinking, like, wait a minute, the timing was the same. I pulled out his yearbook, and he was a senior when Vice President Harris was a freshman at
Wow.
Howard. And
Wow.
so just the legacy, he was very instrumental in the city as well. He was economic developer. He went to Howard. He went to American for law school. And so did a lot of work in Avondale and a lot of work around the city in community economic development. And so, just a legacy that we are living through right now. But sometimes grief can get the best of you, but you have to continue to work. I think the best
Mm.
advice that I had was, it's like grief is like the ocean. You have to ride the wave. So sometimes they go
Mm.
out, sometimes they go in. But
Wow.
if you try to like bottle it
Girl,
up,
you better say that. Wow.
yeah,
Yes.
so if you try to bottle it up, it has nowhere to
Ah,
go. It just absolutely has nowhere to go. And so, and I would just say, for especially the African American community, it's hard to talk about like end of life, end of
mhm.
life kind of planning and financial, like funeral planning and things like that. But I would just encourage like all of our viewers, it's a hard conversation, but it's a conversation that when your loved ones have to have that conversation and make those decisions, it it helps the loved ones that are left behind. And so I feel really fortunate, for all the life experiences that I've had, and you know, so yeah.
Chantel she says, Tiffany, you are an amazing mom. She also said that was a really good analogy of riding the waves. I mean, I couldn't sit back and listen to you and not even comment because you are exactly right. A lot of times people see strength in us, they see the smiles, but behind the scenes, there are things that are ongoing. And sometimes we have no control. And so, what I'm learning, once we get to the 50-year-old range, is we have got to surrender and understand after all that we've done, the only thing that we can do is stand and allow
Mm-hmm.
life to lead us and guide us, but to never ever give up, which you are not doing. The fact of everything that you're involved with now, you're embracing grief and what you've experienced, you're sharing your story. You've come on board. Maybe today was a good day, maybe it was a not so good day, but you're present and you're sharing wisdom and knowledge. So we're thanking you for that as this history is being made. So, in terms of grief, is there anything that you're doing, maybe, or that you aspire to do that others that may be able to assimilate and support with you? Are you bringing about something, maybe an idea or a thought or an organization
Well,
centered around grief?
grief. One organization that I found really helpful was Companions on a Journey. And that has been really well for what they do in high schools. They do a lot of peer-to-peer grief counseling. And so my son, started at LaSalle High School doing the Companions on a Journey. And, they were really kind of shocked at how much grief he encountered.
Mm,
And
mm,
I just mentioned like, the 3 men in his life, but he lost a grandmother, his Mimi, which was, my sister-in-law's mother. There was an aunt that passed away during that time. And so
wow.
that was a chronic grief. And even his counselor said that, for a student, he had not had a student to have experienced that much grief, but they really saw just his attitude, and they saw, how giving he was, and wanted him to be an ambassador. And so I think back to when I was on the board of health, and James was just barely walking, and like all the board members were at the meeting, and we were like shaking hands, and he went down, and he was going down the center aisle to Dr. Adcock at the time, and he was shaking one person's hand on one side and shaking the other person's hand. And so Dr. Adcock said he's either going to be a preacher or a politician. And so,
Wow.
and
Okay.
so one thing that he has done in his college search, he's thinking about psychology as a major in politics. So psychology or politics as a major. And so I just believe, and I know my sister Chantel would agree, I believe that the things that happen in our life is like setting us up for our next journey. So I don't know what's going to come of it for him, but I just think that for anybody that's gone through grief, I know sometimes
Mm.
it feels hard and it feels like, a dark
Mhm.
place. And I still have sad days. I still have
Mhm.
days where, I want to go fishing with my dad, or I want to have some iced tea with my husband, but it's still a good time. We try to we like this weekend we were doing college visits, and it's a bittersweet time, but
Mhm.
you just have to wake up every day with positivity in your heart, and to think that you're gonna make a difference in somebody's life. And so, like, just giving to others is a great way to get outside of yourself, you know, um, to get outside of your own problems, your own woes. So when you're helping
Wow.
that person, you think you're really helping the person that's in the soup line, or the person that's at Matthew 25, but really deep down,
Mm.
you're helping yourself,
I
and you're
love it.
freeing. So you're giving away so that God can deposit back into you.
Ooh-wee. Tiffany, I say, whom he calls, he qualifies. Okay. And so when he's able to get it through us, service,
Hmm.
helping others, making it more than about ourselves, when he can get it through us, he can give more to us. He knows who
Oh,
he
that's
can
good.
trust.
That's good. That's really good. That's really good. That'll preach. That'll preach. That'll preach. So,
Chantel said he's working it out, all things together for James. And for many, and even with James, there are probably some things that at school right now, James may feel. I remember with my son and my daughter being in a certain environment, certain pressures were put on them that weren't put on other people. Others could get by with certain things, but they had to ensure that they proved themselves or they were scrutinized to a different degree. But I think it all works together for our good. What do you say as a mom when you watch your child and you know that your child is dealing and maybe decisions are being made that may try to label or limit? Because, I'm all about taking off limitations and move beyond
mhm.
mediocrity. How do you encourage? A child, a young Black child, a male child, okay, in an environment where he may be the only one and it seems like he's alone, but you know that there's a calling and a purpose for his life. What do you say, mom? What do you do?
I think you have to be there through thick and thin, through the good times, the bad times, the times that you doubt yourself as a parent. Sometimes self-doubt does. I don't know about you, but sometimes you're like, am I making the right decision? Am I doing the right thing? But I think you just have to be present. You have to be present. That's one thing that I've tried to do. I've tried to be present. So whether it's serving on the PTO or serving cookies for the
Absolutely.
for the football team, being present, being
Mm-hmm.
being present, being mindful. So I would just say in this day and age, like, just be mindful, and be mindful of where you are. We've had to have the talk. We've had to have the talk of, like, where you live and how you travel, the car you drive. And even after the Trayvon Martin incident, you
Mm.
know, wearing, like, a hoodie. I just had to explain to him, like, if you're walking down the street, I mean, just
Mm.
be mindful of what you're wearing, and where you are. And it's a hard conversation to have.
It
But it's
is.
one but it's one that has to happen. It
Mm-hmm.
has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've just encouraged him to try to do his best, and as parents and as mothers, we have to do that. But I'll say this, like, one of his ministry counselors, Mr. Winiarski, and he's developed a really good relationship with him. And he said, Tiffany, you're a wonderful mother. He's like, I'm about to say something, but don't take it the wrong way. He said, but only men can affirm other young men.
Ooh,
And
ooh.
I wasn't offended by that, because I knew what he was
Mm-hmm.
saying. And so, for my son to have his uncle still in his life, and other mentors in our village of, friends, and like their husbands, and that's really important to figure out how our young men can be affirmed and can get affirmed. And I wasn't always that aware, but with that awareness, I've tried to do a little bit better of making sure he's intentional with his uncles, and intentional, and unfortunately, I don't know if you've seen this in your family, but in our family, it's, health issues have unfortunately plagued a lot of our men, a lot of African American men. And so you have whole communities, for one reason or another, don't have a lot of men in those
Mm-hmm.
communities.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the men that are in fraternities, or in other organizations, the work that they do is very important for our kids coming up.
That's absolutely right. Nicole says men affirming men, and she definitely knows as well. So I think you bring a very valid point. One of the things that I did strive to do was, like you said, you gave really great advice, being present. And sometimes being present was, I had to learn how to be present because my son was football, basketball, lacrosse. For football, when he was young, I saw the dads get out there on the sidelines. I started going out on the
Mm.
sidelines. I would
So
run on the sidelines with my son.
so
Run,
yeah,
baby.
so I'm that mom. I'm that mom. And when James was little, the team would be like, "Who's with your mom?" And he's like, "It's just my mom. It's just my
Mm-hmm.
mom." And
Mm-hmm.
so, sports is a big thing. Like my mother, I'm telling you, she knows every college score, every NFL score. She knows who's playing. Like we were celebrating my birthday dinner on Sunday, and somebody said, "Well, who played last night?" She's like, "Well, Oral Roberts almost came through." So sports was like a big thing. My oldest brother played in college. He played for Kentucky State, and he played for Ohio State. So sports
Mm-hmm.
is a big thing for us. So yeah, I was that mom too. I was that mom too.
Being
I
present,
have to
and
admit.
then men affirming men. So the fraternities in our communities do play a critical role. Lots of activities ongoing, and then as a mom, we're constantly assessing, and I'm sure you've assessed this. Is it who's around my child? If you're meeting someone for the first time, because oftentimes children don't know what they don't know. But one thing about you is just as Chantel has said, as Nicole has shared, the feedback is coming in. And by the way, we do have a number of people that are tuning in and
Oh
viewing.
my goodness. And I'll say this, anybody that knows me knows that I'm like behind the scenes. So like I'm the one doing the speeches and this and that. So to be on the spotlight, I thank you. And I'll also mention one thing, I've been very blessed here recently to join Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Yes.
And it was a lifelong dream for me. And the work that, like I mentioned, for fraternities and sororities are doing in our community through the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
what our
Mm.
churches are doing, like the sororities, the fraternities, our churches, even groups like the Masons and Shriners, we are holding our community down. Like we have held our community
Yes.
up through this. And, I feel so blessed. I feel so blessed.
Mm-hmm. I'm just hopeful that I can be present with James for his graduation. But even if not, he has a village, and Mom, you've done a tremendous job in helping build that village around him.
And
And
I wanted to give a quick shout out to my home church back in Tennessee. I'll have to send this to my village that raised me. Growing up in Tennessee was particularly difficult, I have to say. It was predominantly white community, and I learned at an early age the impact that racism and prejudice has, unfortunately. And we
mhm.
grew up in the foothills of Tennessee, and it was a wonderful community. The church I grew up in was Thankful Baptist Church. My mom didn't play about going to church. Like,
That's right.
you went to Sunday school, then you went to church, then you had like two p.m. service, and you had an evening service, and then you had prayer meeting, and you had teen choir practice. So growing up in the church, it really gave me a foundation. So I wanted to just give a shout out to my Thankful Baptist Church. But growing up, you know, colorism, racism was something that I dealt with at an early age. And I remember my dad would pick me up from school, and almost every day I would ask him, like, "Hey, Daddy, like, would you want to be a don't you want to be a police officer?" He was like, "No, I don't want to be a police officer." So I would ask
Mm,
him. For some reason, I would continually ask him. And so the one day he said, "Well, no, that's not really what, God had for me to do. That's not really what I want to do." So in my like 4-year-old mind, I said, "Well, couldn't you paint yourself white?" And so
mm,
I don't think in that community, I didn't know a black police officer. I didn't know a black firefighter. And
mm-hmm.
so the way, and as a kindergartner, as a young child, the way I analyzed that was that my dad could not be a police officer because he was black. And so
Mm,
growing up in the South, racism was very overt. Like, you
mm-hmm.
knew people didn't like you because of the color of your skin. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and moving to Cincinnati, moving to Ohio, it was, a different experience, because racism was like right underneath, and it was a lot of covert racism that I dealt with
Mm-hmm.
coming to Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think we have to be open, and we have to
Yes.
embrace diversity and understand the value
Yes.
that diversity has within our families and within business.
Yes, and we heard here on Elise Host Live, one of our guests did share, that whole embracing, as you said, very
Hmm.
good suggestion. Embracing it, including it. I look forward to the roles that I serve in, being from Cincinnati, having lived down in Texas. Texas is in the South, Tiffany, much like you. You know what you're dealing with. There's
Hmm.
nothing hidden. Where Cincinnati being my hometown, which, I love, it is hidden. Sometimes you don't know, and it can be shocking. But the reality is that given 2021, the pandemic, if not now, then when, dealing with one of the largest cases around racism and death, we benefit, our organizations, our institutions, our businesses benefit by embracing diversity and equity. And I see strides in that, but we want to see major strides, because one thing that you and I both share is being a mother of a
Hmm.
Black man. And it's nothing more concerning than wondering, when your son leaves, will he make it home safely? Not
Hmm.
because he hasn't been taught, not because he's not doing what's right, but will he be mistreated because of the color of his skin? And so, given that prayer has been a big go to in our faith, Chantel definitely, she comments on embracing diversity and inclusion as well. But our organizations, as we work together, and I'm so grateful to be aligned with you, Tiffany, because our careers are parallel. We have different journeys, but in our roles today, we help each other, and it does take a village, and organizations, institutions benefit by having those that are connected with others on similar paths as well. And the more that we're connected, the more we know and the more we can grow. So now here's where I want to shift. And look, I try
Oh
to
my
stick to
goodness.
about
Oh
30
my goodness.
minutes. We're at 42
I
minutes, right?
know it. We're at 42 minutes.
Girl, and they are loving it. I mean, it's just more viewers are coming in.
Oh
I
my
don't know if it's
goodness.
your sorority, what, but they're like, we want to hear more from Tiffany.
I
And
think I think because I'm normally quiet. Like, I'm normally not out in front. So this is probably a new environment to receive me
exactly.
in. Yeah.
I love it because people can connect and relate to your transparency, and that's one of the things is having a platform where they can get factual, candid information, and that's what I'm striving to do with Elyse Host Live. So tell me, Tiffany, what do you do to decompress? How do you take care of Tiffany? um, what are some of those things that you do to, given there's so much ongoing right now? There is trauma, there is the pandemic. We have in one of our Facebook groups, we actually have one individual who I went to high school with that passed away. We've got a number of individuals who are our ages that the pandemic is really impacting, and not only through maybe death as a result of COVID, it could be pre-existing conditions. We've got people in our community that are dealing with the issue of they're dealing with a loved one who has been impacted. They're dealing with maybe the loss of a job. They are dealing with the issue of, just anything that the pandemic can bring about. What are you doing for yourself to make sure that you keep Tiffany going? What do you do?
Well, what I recently have been doing is I work out as a stress
Yay.
reliever. And so I have a really good, a really great set of coaches at building better futures. And so they have really brought fitness and health and wellness to the community. You know, they could really be anywhere in the city. They could be charging hundreds of dollars for the they provide. I can you still see me? Are
I
we still
can, we can
connected?
see you. And, and the one thing about technology, if you notice, if you drop off whatever, I got you, boo. Just come right on back in, but we can
Okay.
see you
Okay. Thank you, boo.
and, and we can hear you. So we don't
Okay.
see what's on your screen, none of that.
Okay.
Technology is
Okay.
amazing. I
It
love
really
it.
is. I was really nervous. So,
Uh-huh.
but what I was saying, I like to work out. I really like to cook. So one thing that my son and I did, that James and I did during the pandemic, we cooked together a whole lot. So
Great.
he would find recipes on TikTok. And so just spending time with family is good, connecting with friends. But I think the biggest thing as a stress reliever is working out.
I love it. I love it because as we go into National Minority Month in April, we've got, a wealth of information that we're going to share. And what I really want our viewers to know is that came from you. I appreciate you, girl. I love giving credit where it's due. I like being connected with
Mhm.
people who know more. I don't want to be just the smartest one in the room. You know what I'm saying? You pour out into people,
Mhm.
and behind the scene, folks like ourselves are critical, are essential. So tell us about, you've got a business venture. I mean, girl, them lashes, they are looking absolutely amazing. Tell us
Thank
about
you.
getting
Thank
lashed
you.
by Tiff.
So I have
Uh-huh.
so Lash by Tiff. It's a venture that I started in September. And so I had a friend that was at church and she was selling lashes to my 70-year-old mother. And I was like, well, I have to get on this. And so I became a lash affiliate. And so within just a month, I ranked up. I ranked up like 4 times within our company. And it's a really good opportunity for women to gain self-sufficiency. They give a lot back to the community. But it's Tori Bell Cosmetics, and it's magnetic lashes. And so it's a patent pending um, lashes and makeup beauty business. And so in addition to working full time at Waterworks and being a full time mom and being part of a sorority, I also do the lash business. And so I'm loving it. I love helping women to feel beautiful about themselves. And so it's been a great endeavor.
Wow. I tell you, I know people are like, these are some powerhouses. When do they stop? And the key is that it really doesn't stop. So this is my signature closing as we work to transition. I have some key words, and when I share these key words, I just want you to share a nugget of wisdom with our viewing audience. And
Okay.
so, I'll share the word, and then you respond with, your thought, your nugget of wisdom. Okay, you ready? And
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
just
ready. I
shoot.
guess I am. I'm ready.
I'll just shoot from the hip. Here's the first one:
Okay.
mindset.
Mindset. Being dedicated.
Being dedicated. Okay, very good. Enjoying the journey.
Enjoying the journey. Um, Looking forward. Moving forward.
Absolutely. Shift, SHIFT, the word shift. What's a nugget of wisdom around shift?
Being able to pivot. Being able to shift in the moment. Um, Being able to be serious when needed, but having fun and laughing and enjoying life. And that is just as necessary. So shift. Yeah.
Education.
Education, I think education is the foundation. My dad would always say, and my dad would always say, always get your education because they can take your money, your possessions away, but once you have your education, they never can take it away.
Wow. I love it. I love it. I love
And
it.
so between my yeah, and between my brother, I just have to drop this little nugget. Between my two brothers, myself, my sister-in-law, and my mother, we probably have six bachelor's degrees, one doctorate degree, three master's degrees. Well, one, two, three, no, four master's degrees. I have two. Um, and my brother started on his doctorate degree. So, education is really the foundation.
I love it. I love it. I don't know if most people know, um, but we're both outdoorsy women. I know that
Yes.
you like to, fish, hunt. We'll get
Yeah. So
outdoors.
that's Yeah, so I do love the outdoors. So we grew up fishing. My family grew up fishing. My dad had a boat. At my aunt's house, we had a river that ran behind my aunt Shirley's house, and so fishing was like a big exciting thing. Like we would fish overnight. We would cook the fish. We would catch the fish all night. In the morning, we would catch it. We would cook it, fillet it. All that jazz. So yeah, fishing is a very big important part. And I have the fishing box that my dad made for my son when he was in kindergarten, and it had like these little tiny glasses, and so it's those keepsakes like my dad's lures, his fishing poles. So fishing and hunting outdoors is a really big thing. And actually, a couple girlfriends and I, a couple weekends ago, we went and got our CCW license. So
Yeah.
ladies, be
Yes.
prepared,
Come on,
be
girl.
well,
Look.
be well prepared, be well
Yes.
prepared, right? So
Yes. Yes.
yeah, so that
Smith
was
and
exciting.
Wesson, I'll tell you, sales are up. Ammunition is low. So
They really are.
good for you
Very
all.
much so. Very much so.
I tell you, I mean, we've just had a fun filled, packed evening, assimilating from our day. Chantel says definitely a powerful evening. You shared some amazingly great nuggets of wisdom from being a mom, your career path, your dealing with grief. The loss of a loved one, standing in the gap, the things that you've done in the community. I mean, we could go on and on. What's next? What is next for Tiffany?
I think what's next? What is next? For Tiffany, that's a good question. Um, traveling once the pandemic opens up,
Uh
definitely
huh.
traveling. Continuing to grow my business, continuing to represent the city the best I can. I absolutely love what I
I love
do.
it.
So,
Hmm.
I am behind the scenes, but I love helping my director, like I mentioned, my executive director, Kathy Bailey. I love helping her succeed and helping the city succeed. So, continuing my career here, and, continuing to volunteer. I look forward to, once we get past the pandemic, of really being able to get out into the community for more volunteering opportunities. And so, like, my son, he emailed me at school today. He's like, Mom, I need 35 more credit hours. I'll have 200 credit hours. So, like, credit hours of volunteerism. And so, we just want to, I just want to enjoy life. The past 2 years, it's been a difficult time. And so, like, this past Saturday, my son and I, we went to a college visit, and we had ramen, and we sat outside and enjoyed the sun. So I think just enjoy life. That's what it's about. That's what it's about.
Lovely. Sometimes it's the simple things. Chantel says, thanks for sharing your journey, Tiffany. And we absolutely want to thank you. For some gentlemen that might have taken a look this evening that says, hey, is she single? Is she available? What's the outcome for Tiffany right now? Where are you in life?
Well, so okay, so I am single, and I'm currently accepting applications.
I love it.
And so we will have a we'll have a 2-part interview panel. So, but no, but
That's
no,
right.
seriously, like, companionship is something I do desire, and I have several girlfriends that will be part of that panel.
That's
But,
right.
I do think that I have a lot. I mean, tooting my own horn, I do think that I have a lot to offer someone, and
Absolutely.
I'm awaiting that person to be able to offer a lot to myself and to my family. And shoot your shot. That's all I got to say. Shoot your
I
shot.
love it. I love it. Tiffany, I just personally want to thank you for those that have been involved this week, this whole month. This week, we're going to end with Sherry Hughes, who's one of our meteorologists here, for those of you all that are watching. And then we'll come in with Miss Draper. Miss Draper, most of you all know, coming out of Walnut Hills, I did get a chance to be educated by her. So, Tiffany, you have brought tremendous information tonight. I feel inspired. I'm sure many have been as well, encouraged. Who knows where God is taking this? I
Yeah.
do believe that there's some national recognition for those that have been a part of this initial platform, which I am proud to bring forth positive promotion
And
during this
Elyse,
pandemic time.
can I say one thing? I know there's a lot of things that you could be doing, your daughter, your son, but how about, like, this platform that you're creating, with
Oh,
Elyse Speaks, and, I just think it's a great platform, and whatever I can do
thank
to
you.
help extend this into the future.
Mhm.
I mean, I've told you, you have an excellent speaking voice,
I
and
appreciate that.
you always approach things very professionally and in a sound way. And so I just want to encourage you.
Thank
So yeah, I
you.
just want to say thank you for this opportunity. And I just want to drop one more little nugget, is that my word for this year was intentional. And so I would just encourage everybody, everybody does their vision boards, but just get that one word. It's not too late to have your New Year's resolution. Mine is intentional, and I'm just going to try to live this the rest of this year in an intentional fashion. So thank you for being intentional and creating this platform for
I
women and for
love
others.
it. Oh, wow. Just thank you, Tiffany. So, for those of you all that have joined, if you want to reach out to Tiffany, feel free to inbox me. She does have a lot going on. It's been an honor to bring her forth. She could have been doing something else, but she did sacrifice her time to be with us today. In her role, she's rather busy, but we are appreciative that she did come forward this evening. We appreciate you all tuning in. Again, share this, refer it. You can forward it. We've got it on multiple platforms, on Facebook and several groups. It's on YouTube. Then we also have an international audience through Twitch. So we definitely want to bring a voice to the rest of the world about what's going on that's positive. And as I close, remember, It's my goal to help you take off any limitations, to move beyond mediocrity so that you too may have a quality life. Good night, everyone. And I will see you all tomorrow evening at 9 p.m. Thanks for joining us live. Thank you so very much.